Good morning and welcome to another edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Whisperer. Judy Copenbarger, how are you?
I'm fine. Hi,
That's
Carlos.
awesome.
I am the Money Whisperer, and I'm so glad to see you. Happy Tuesday to you.
To you too. Yeah, it's been a fantastic week. I look forward to our next series and a lot of great information to share with folks as well too. Thank you for joining us this morning. Make sure if you're not following Judy, you do so at judycopenbarger.com. There's a wealth of resources and information that we are going to share with you guys a little later in the show. But I want to jump right into what our discussion is going to start us off on this fantastic series. And it is really questions that have come up, people have asked, people have written about. It's choosing financial products and services, right? And Judy's going to take us down and share her wisdom on some of this as well too.
Absolutely. Carlos, there actually are money truth guidelines to choosing products and services in the financial arena. And there is an art to it, but it's also kind of a science in getting the money thing right. And so we have a money truth strategy to getting that done. And it really depends on the area of finance, the strategy that you take when it comes down to the step-by-step action plan. Because as you know, there are several pillars to personal finance and small business finance, and even small ministry finance. You've got the investments. People think money manager, money consultant, financial advisor. They're going to like invest my money. That's just one little part of it. Making your money grow is one little part of it. There's also managing cash flows, managing cash reserves. Taxation is a big one because it's not what you earn, it's what you keep of what you earn. And tax is a big part of what's missing for a lot of people. And then there are protective things that we do, right? There's the legal part, entities, trusts, wills, all those legal documents that help protect what we've earned. And then you've got the insurances. And that's usually the first line of defense if something happens. You crash your car, you get another one. Your house burns down, they fix it for you. If you get sued, you've got money there that can pay them rather than having to lose your home. If you have a business, there's a loss in your business, insurance can cover those kinds of things. So there are all these pillars of finance, but for every single pillar, there is a money truth strategy. There are money truth guidelines to making sure that you are doing it right. So it's picking the right products, picking the right services, picking the right team to serve you and finding that perfect alignment. That's the art and the science for sure.
So I know that we mentioned the 5 pillars before. I know that we've talked about a previous show, folks, about some of the different components of that. But like finance, it's a scary word. And one of the things that I think would be beneficial to get us off the ground and let's just get all the nervousness, right? All the scary words out of the way. But how about we talk about legal? Talk to us about the legal aspect of all of this. I think that probably will set the foundation for us.
Yeah, I think approaching an attorney or approaching someone in the legal field for a lot of people is intimidating. First of all, you're thinking, well, they have education I don't have. They're using these words they paid a lot of money to know, all the Latin, that's in law. When I went to law school, I learned a lot of Latin. I had no idea until I came out and went, wow, I know a lot of Latin now. It's crazy. But you don't know it. So it can be really intimidating. And you think, people watch TV and they see these big, tall, offices with all these big desks and scary people and have you a reservation? What time is your appointment?
Yep.
All that stuff, cappuccino machines, all that stuff. You kind of have this image that lawyers are scary people. And just like any profession, there are scary ones. I know scary teachers. I remember scary teachers.
Yeah.
Right? There are scary police officers and there are wonderful ones. No matter, there are contractors that I wish I never met. And there are some that I just wish I had more projects. I like having them around. Every profession has people across the spectrum. So I think that the powerful decision making that you can invoke, that you can implement, is when you're looking for someone, like especially a lawyer, or you have a need or whatever, that you make sure there's a good fit. And this is the art, this is the science. You need to make sure that fit is there, that alignment is there. I think that's the most important thing.
So when we talk about legal aspects and we're looking at, I don't know if we want to classify it as products, but more like services and other. If we're just getting started, let's say I'm brand new to the whole financial concept, right? Because most of us never really had a professional professionally trained. We're normally a product of our own parents, right? Whether
Right.
that's good or bad, it's we find out later in life that it's like, oh, I wish I would have known that a lot sooner. So I think one of the things when we're talking about legal, that if you can share with us, we're getting started. What are some things that we should be talking to a lawyer about when we're looking at big picture things?
Yeah, if we're looking at the financial big picture, so we'll come in from that angle because there's a lot of things when you think about your family, there are legal things. You think about your business, there are legal things. But when we're talking just about like personal finance and protecting my family, like regular vanilla stuff, you
Mm-hmm.
probably want to make sure if you own property, make sure if you have minor children or particularly a blended family, if there's not minor children, but you have his and hers and theirs and that kind of thing, it can get really tricky down the road when you've amassed this wealth and now it's time for it to be transferred. And you start thinking about what's going to happen to my stuff when I'm gone. That can be tricky. And you know the stories. If it hasn't happened in your family, you know one where it's happened. And
Right.
this disharmony arises, this sometimes like frustration, hostility, relationships that were fine or apparently fine. Now they're not over money, over stuff, or you got the pictures. I wanted the teacup. You got the rocking chair. I got the lawnmower. Who's going to get the stuff? And a lot of times that arguing and fighting starts well before it's time. Like, grandma's still here. Grandpa's still here. Why are we? It's not yours. Right. So I think those kind of things to make sure, and with our practice, we always want to make sure there's family harmony on all levels at all times. Leave a family better than you found it. So, to answer your question, when you're thinking about regular vanilla family things, probably a will or a trust. And the difference on its surface is a will, you're involving the court system, the court process of probate with a will. With a trust, you avoid the court. So you don't have the costs and the delays and the intervention that some people talk about with the court system. It's not pleasant. Sometimes it's necessary, but it's not pleasant. So for most people, talking to an attorney about deciding, should I have a will? What kind? Should I have a trust? What kind? Or both? What should I have depending on what I have and what I want to accomplish with my family? If you have a business, small, closely held business, or if you want to start one, doing it right, you want to make sure you have the right legal entity. An entity is just the hat you're wearing when you're dealing with your business. So if I start a lawn mowing business and it's just me and my, kids out there mowing lawns, I put on the hat as a sole proprietor. I can do that just on my regular tax return with a couple of extra forms, and I'm in business. For some people, that's good when you start, but as your business grows, you need a little bit more structure, a little more protection, a little more ability to expense the costs that you have of doing your business. And so you might want to incorporate. Sounds easy. There's a lot of kinds and types of corporations. What kind? Do I do an LLC, an LLP, an S Corp, a C Corp? What do I do? There's all kinds. What's the best structure for me? And that's where you can really benefit from a conversation with an attorney that does this to find out, here's the business plan I have. Here's the plans I have for the next few years in business, what I expect to make, how I expect to hire people or not, what kind of products or services I'm going to deliver, what's the best business for me, tax-wise, and for my structure, for my protection. And then an attorney that does that all the time, and a specialist is one of the key elements you want to be careful about. They will be able to guide you and say, well, this is the one that you want to use now. When this happens in your business, you might want to consider another option or two. And that would be great advice, right? So you don't do a big, C Corp and set up all this $20, $30, $40,000 a year stuff for a business that might net you $50,000 the first year. That'd be silly to give all the money to the process before you're even rolling. So you want to do the right things in the right times. An attorney can help you decide those things.
That's awesome. And I appreciate you sharing that, folks. Thank you for joining us this morning. You guys are already commenting on there. I'm glad you're here joining us. Please make sure that you share the stream. If you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. And we're going to talk about her website a little bit later on in the show. Today, we are talking about choosing financial products and services. And Judy talked a little bit about the 5 pillars, in finance and in different areas of it. And we're currently focusing, folks, on the legal side of it too. So if you missed the beginning, make sure you replay this from the very beginning because it's a lot of great information as well too. So having a little bit of of a deep dive here. Tell us you've mentioned this before, but tell us a little bit in a deeper sense the difference between why it's important to have both a will and a trust on there, as opposed to just maybe one or the other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mentioned just the surface level.
Right.
When you have a will, let's say you haven't done any planning, you thought about it, you wrote something on a napkin one time, you've never formalized a will. If that's true, you actually do have a will. It's just not one that you wrote. Whatever state you live in has a will for you. So if you get hit by a truck before you did any planning, here we are in California, right? California says, here's what's going to happen. Here's what you have. Here's the process we're going to go through. We're going to make sure, this is the court, we're going to make sure anybody that you owed money to gets paid, and anybody that owed you pays you. And everybody has an opportunity for notice to know, oh, she's gone and she owed me money. I better go get it. And you have so many days to make that happen. So once all the business and the money is settled, then the court says, well, what does she have? She had an IRA. She had a couple of houses. She had a couple of investment accounts, and she had, a stack of books and some cash. What are we going to do with that? And there is a rule of intestate succession. Intestate means I never planned. And succession means where does it go next? What is the order of where it goes? So we look around. Did she have a husband? Yeah. If I didn't, did she have kids? Yeah. If I didn't, did she have parents living? Yeah. If I didn't, did she have siblings living? Right. So there's certain order. Every state has one where the money would go and how it would be divided. And this is where you get into these stories that you hear and you kind of wish you were one.
Right.
These people are beneficiaries of the long lost uncle. I met him twice when I was a kid. I remember, he lived in Africa and he came and brought me a trinket. And then, I saw him like 20 years later at a wedding, and I've never heard from him. And all of a sudden there's millions. You hear these stories. It's like, I want to have that.
Right.
I think I know all my uncles, but maybe not, So those things do happen. And the way it happens is usually through that intestate succession. The court says, I don't know where to put it, but here's a relative. Let's do that. And once you find one relative living in that class, they get it. So that's what happens with a will. If you don't want the state to decide what happens, hey, with minor children, that's a big one.
Right.
You want a judge somewhere, we call it the court, but do you want a judge somewhere in his black robe that has never met, or hers, right, who has never met your family deciding what's going to happen with your minor children? Really? No, because we don't know what their values are. That one person making all those decisions, they don't know me. They don't know if I want my kids to do mission trips or go to summer camp or learn music or attend private schoolers or play soccer or have, whatever. They don't know anything about what we want for our children. Do we want them making the decision like that? How much money they get, where they're going to live, who they're going to live with? I don't think so. That's a big one. So without a way to not have the court involved, and there are several ways to avoid probate, without that, you are really at the whim of what the court decides for your family. And it might work out great and it might not. Are we willing to take the risk? Most people, when they understand that, say, no, I'd rather make my own rule of instructions, right, for the people I leave behind. Where the money goes, how my kids are raised, what they're going to do, when they have availability. Do I want them to have all those millions at age 18? Probably not. Some kids are ready, most are not, especially nowadays. So we want them to have the money and the wealth and the assets when they're ready. So how do we help prepare them? One of the ways that a lot of people use is some vehicle called a trust. And there are many kinds of trust. All a trust means is it's a contract with three people: owner, manager, beneficiary, basically. So a trust is a contract that you set up while you're living, and you're capable and you have capacity, and you say, here's how I want things to go. If I'm not able to say it because I'm either not here or I don't know what I'm doing, I'm wandering around in a nursing home somewhere. If I'm not able to say how I want things to go, I want to have my instructions written down so someone I trust, like a trustee, that's where trustee comes from, someone I trust will follow my instructions and make sure I'm cared for if I'm here and my family's cared for if I'm not. That's what a trust can do for you. And if you create it right with the right kind of attorney that does this all the time, and they get it right. I see documents all the time in our law practice, trusts that were never funded, They've got provisions totally left out or conflicting provisions, which means we have to go to court to figure out what they wanted. That's not good. The cost is not good. So great for attorneys because somebody's getting a fee, bad for the family. So you want to get it done right by someone who does this all the time. Make sure the provisions are exactly what you want to have happen. The outcome is there for you, and it's done by a professional. And in California, well, really on both coasts, you're going to spend a little more than you will maybe in the middle of the states. If you're out in Oklahoma or Kansas or somewhere like that. And I would say for a properly created estate plan, just to give like a fee range, you're probably looking at 1,500 to 2,000 if you're single, up to 4 or 5,000 if you're married, to get everything you need done. Your trust, your pour over will that goes with it, reciprocating pour over wills, your healthcare power of attorney, your durable power of attorney, all the documents that make this transfer possible without you there or without the court intervening. You're probably looking at that range. Now, with that being said, some people, when you say trust, they think, oh, I got one of those. I went down to the stationery store. I bought one. I filled in my name. Now I have a trust.
Right.
Well, you might have a trust, but you don't have family protection. Maybe you did it with a paralegal or a friend at church or something, and they kind of filled in a blank, or they bought a software and filled in your name and things like that. That's not planning. That's a document. And that's true for any kind of contract. If it's a promissory note, you bought somebody's car. If it's a lease agreement, you have tenants in one of your properties. If you create a business and you say, I need an LLC for tax purposes, the accountant says, oh, just fill in the blank. Here, I've got one. A couple $100, just fill it in and pay your tax. That's not planning. That's a document. And in our firm, we're very particular about making sure the protection is in place. If you're doing something for a protective purpose, make sure the protection is happening, not just that you have a document that you can put in your safe or have a title for your tax return. You want to get it done right, or just don't do it at all. Sometimes you're better not doing anything. For example, a will. Some people will just write down a little will and kind of sign it, and then, oh, let's make it better. Let's go notarize it. Let's get a bunch of people to witness it. It makes the will null. If it's a holographic will, they're doing things to it that make it better to have nothing.
Wow.
So not knowing these rules, and some of the rules seem archaic, and in law school, it's like, well, that's kind of weird, but they have a reason to them. It's just not a reason most people want to study to find out because it's voluminous. But there are reasons to these things, and it makes sense most of the time to hire an expert that does this all the time, because they'll know all these nuances and pitfalls, and they can see around a corner that you can't see around because they know the rules and they've been there before. They have the experience. So that was a long-winded answer to the trust and will thing, but there's a lot to it. And I just want people to be encouraged. If you're out there in the audience, get your questions answered. Get the truth about money. Get the resources you need, so you know what you need to know to ask the right questions of the right kind of professional, and you'll recognize them when you see them.
Yeah. And something to be said also is, and I'm sure you have a lot of stories like this, is that a lot of the problems that I think folks encounter also is the procrastination, right? At one point, I was guilty of that. Oh, I'll get around to it. Oh, I'll get around to it, right? But when is that around? And when you least expect it, that unfortunately things happen and you're not ready. You're not prepared.
Yeah, it's so true. You have to plan while you can, because there may come a time where it's too late, and then your options are limited.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So folks, thank you for joining us. We've covered quite a bit under the legal pillar today, including the wills and trust. If you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. And make sure you watch the beginning of the show also if you missed the first part of it. And speaking of judycopenbarger.com, Judy, tell us some of the resources, share some of the resources that are available on your website for folks.
Oh, yeah. Well, you just got to go. There are so many articles, so many videos on there, and they're all, 5-6 minutes. Some are shorter, on every possible topic you can imagine about finance. Also at judycopenbarger.com, you can click the little green button, and it takes you to the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program, which is a whole course of all of this stuff. It goes through the legal stuff, the insurance stuff, taxation, everything you need to know, not just income tax, all the kinds of taxes. It goes through the cash flows, cash reserves. What if you have an uneven income? like you get paid bonuses or commissions, and all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of money, and then next month nothing, and then a bunch of money, and then nothing. How do you manage all that? How do you even out the ride? And how do you get your investments to perform, get the right balance so they perform no matter what's happening in the market? You think, oh, the market's going to fall. There are investments that go up when the market's falling. So don't you want to have both, right? The perfect pie. So all of that is in the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program. And I'd love for you to go there. You can watch several classes for free right now if you'd like to. And there are many classes in all 5 pillars. So all these courses are built out just for you. And you can go there and watch them for no money. So go in there. I think right now it's set at 7 days for free. So if you have a weekend, instead of, splurging and binge watching, some old show, you could actually binge watch some of these all in a weekend and not have to pay for them. So it won't turn on for 7 days if you put your credit card information in or whatever. It's free. So those are available. Also, if you're a reader or if you like to read on Kindle on your laptop or your iPad, the Money, Truth, and Life book is there. It's full of everything you need to know about all these pillars of finance, but it also has real life stories of real life people. Some are our family stories, some are client stories. Names have been changed to protect the innocent, but they're stories of where people did something really wise in any area of any pillar of finance that you can imagine. And then some where they made a mistake or they were misguided by a professional or someone who was trying to help, or maybe not trying to help, but probably were, good hearts. They just didn't know. And these very, very costly mistakes were made because they didn't know. And the professionals thought they knew, didn't know. So there are so many ways that you can learn to avoid those kind of mines in the minefield if you know. And I would say when you know better, you do better, right? So educate yourself, educate your children if they're grown and they haven't had a formal education about this stuff. If you can avoid mistakes, that's really what my legacy is about, putting this information out there to make sure. And it's not going to be how I retire. Trust me, it's not going to be my millions and millions. We'll see. But this is not my intent. My intent is for these 40 some years of helping people navigate these financial waters. I've learned how to communicate. I communicate real good. I learned how to communicate issues that can be very complicated and make them very simple so people understand, and then they can implement in the right order with the right steps of action. And so that's my intent, to put all this out in the world and make it available. So I really want you to use it. I want you to share it. I love your feedback when you go out there and you say, oh, this is awesome. I was going to do that. And now I won't, because I know I can see around that corner, right? I can anticipate a mistake that could have been made. And now we're in a better shape because of it. I love that feedback. It makes me feel like all this time and effort is worth putting this out in the world. So please let me know when you hear something that resonates with you or something that really helps you. We love that feedback, and that usually becomes part of the next book. These stories become part of the next book. So please take advantage of these resources and let us know how it's going for you.
I'm glad you shared all of that, but I'm also very glad because I want to make sure that folks remember this, that this is really all about your legacy. This has nothing to do with, money or anything, you growing, a billion. This has to do about sharing your wisdom, about leaving a great legacy behind, that you're really out there trying to help people. And this is one of those key things where it's a great connection with you. I think a lot of our audience has been able to connect that way, because when we talk to you, you're not what we're used to as a financial planner, right? It's always the very scary financial planner. Ooh, I don't understand it. Or they'll talk over your head, you know what I mean? And just to confuse you. But you break it down into a level for a lot of us who are just afraid to ask those questions. And I think people appreciate that. And even more so, knowing that you are doing this for your legacy, to make sure that you're sharing that wisdom with everybody, and everyone can benefit. So I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone watching as well, too. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me to put this out there for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, and guess what time it is? It's time for our Tuesday challenge.
Yes. Challenge. All right. So I'm not doing all this work alone here. You guys, it's kind of like a workshop. We set up the shop, you do the work. So here is your challenge for this week. We talked a little bit about how to choose the right services, the right products, the right legal person to help you. maybe an attorney, the right attorney to help you. So here's your challenge. The first thing that I want you to do is identify an area of law, an area of legal documents that you might have a gap in. Maybe I haven't created my will, or I haven't looked at it for a while. I haven't updated it. I did it when the kids were little. Now they're not. Maybe it's time for new executors or a new succession plan. Maybe distribution has changed. Your assets probably have. For sure, the law has, and it's about to again. Maybe it's time to revisit my trust or create a trust or explore my options with what kind of a trust. Maybe I have grown my business and it's kind of outgrown the protection that I had in place, and it's time to revisit the entity that I have. Should I be incorporating now? Should I change the kind of corporation I have? Maybe I've got several corporations or several LLCs, but I'm not using them. I'm just paying those terrible taxes every year. And maybe it's time to cut them down or go inactive with some. So if there's any area that has a gap, number one, identify that area. Number two, who can help me with that? What do I need to do next to get help? Do I need to learn something? Do I need to go on Money, Truth, and Life? Do I need to get the book? Do I need to get the resource? Do I need to talk to a business partner? Do I need to talk to my spouse? Do I need to talk to my kids? Maybe they're part of your business and your succession. Do we need to have a family powwow or a retreat to go over succession planning and what's going to happen next, maybe with our business, maybe with our family resources? What about the cabin that nobody goes to anymore? Do we need to get rid of that, liquidate it, and do something else? Or buy a timeshare, or start taking trips together, maybe to a dude ranch or out to Hawaii, right? What do we need to do step by step, next plan of action in the area of legal succession planning and things like that? And then number three, what can I do specifically this week? What do I need to do this week to take action to move toward achieving that goal or finishing that gap, right? Number one, identify an area. Number two, make a list of what needs to happen next. And then number three, this week, what one specific action will I take to help fill that gap for legal planning? That's your challenge.
That's a great challenge, folks. And you've heard it here. It's another Money Truth Moment challenge for you guys. Make sure that you give us some feedback, put it on the chat. Make sure you send Judy a message also through social media or an email directly on her website as well, too. We'd love to hear some feedback from you guys, as Judy stated earlier, too. Judy, this has been a great and intense show, but I'm glad actually that you shared a lot of great thoughts, a lot of great things, wisdom when it comes, preparing for the future. I mean, the last thing we want, folks, is, remember, a minute from now is not guaranteed. So we want to make sure that we're very well prepared, and we're fortunate that we have Judy's wisdom to kind of guide us through some of these muddy waters that we don't have a clue on, too. So any last parting words, Judy?
No, just make it a great week and take action.
Awesome. Well, folks, thank you again for joining us. If you didn't catch us from the beginning, make sure you watch the beginning of the show. Follow Judy at judycopenbarger.com. We're here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Share it out with your friends, family, anybody you can think of that needs some help and needs some additional wisdom to make sure that they make positive changes in their life. And as usual, Judy, always a pleasure. I will see you next week.
My pleasure. Good to see you.